So I actually bought the other day Tears of the Kingdom. I know it just came out recently,
Yeah.
and for starters, I'm a huge fan of like Breath of the Wild. When I played it, it took a long time to beat just because there's so much stuff you can see and explore. Um, I'm not gonna give any like spoilers when talking about it, my first impressions of this game, but when I got it and I started it up, um, it was a bit of more of a continuation rather than like how Breath of the Wild began. If you ever played that, it was basically like a short to start, like a short intro, then the tutorial, and that was it. But for this one, you start off like playing the game from the get go, and then it takes you to tutorial. Like there's like a whole like pathway you have to take and like fight some monsters, learn the controls, but then it teaches you everything else.
Yeah, I got for games like this, I feel like they probably assume that you have played the previous game. So like that's probably what they're going is like, you know what, if they're going to play this, hopefully they've played Breath of the Wild or else they're just not going to know anything to do.
I kind of felt that way for me from the start, especially when like there was enemies coming up to begin with, and I was like, okay, let me just use this. And then some reason it showed me a dialogue saying, make sure you use the weapon. Like I already know how to use weapon, otherwise I would have gotten hurt before. But it's like,
What is this weapon you speak of?
yeah. So when I started playing further, I realized like a lot of the new stuff that came out, like in the very beginning, you don't start with the old like items like the time lock or uh, the regular like telekinetic movements and
I
stuff
do
like
have a
that.
question.
Yeah,
So, if you play through Breath of the Wild and you start up Tears of the Kingdom, does it like kind of like with Spider-Man and Spider-Man Miles Morales? Does like is there like any transfer of game knowledge that is available, or
absolutely not.
okay,
It is its own sequel. There's no like memory or anything. You have to go back. It kind of just assumes like
that you played the first one?
that you've played the first one, but it doesn't assume enough that you don't know what happened like at all. Like
Okay,
like it's basically a new story in that same world where you pick up from this point,
okay. So here's
and they
another.
give like a few hints of the previous game,
Okay,
but otherwise like you're focused on what's happening now.
here's another question because um, I've never actually played a Zelda game, so
Really,
I
this is going to be
you,
interesting to talk about now.
you know, it's just one of those things I never really got into, never got around to it. So, do any of the games really have anything to do with one another other than having the same characters? Or,
Very, 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 and I emphasize that very loosely. Like the world is technically connected by a timeline, and it
mm-hmm.
kind of starts, I believe, around Skyward Sword. The story. I'm not gonna like go into broad detail,
Yeah,
but
okay.
at some point, I think it was Legends of the Ocarina of Time. The timeline split into three parts, and every
Uh,
game, like from the beginning to
you're in
now,
one of three timelines.
yeah, you're in one of three timelines. And I'm not
Okay.
sure how it is for Breath of the Wild. I'm probably gonna be wrong on this, but I believe like Breath of the Wild is probably like at the end of one timeline because the lore, the story about it seems very conclusive.
Okay.
So it feels like you're actually ending this story,
Story.
and I don't know how exactly that is for the other ones, other timelines if they're gonna make new games. And the thing is, they leave it open to interpretation because if you make a new game, it's not necessarily the next chapter. It could be in between any point in time, which is really cool how they set that up. But I'm not sure where it'll go after Tears of the Kingdom. But regarding that, now that you brought that up, like if you remember the previous villain in Breath of the Wild, it was Calamity, which is basically like Ganon. He's in his like uh, how do we call it? He's in a monstrous form. Like it's not really him, but it's
Mm-hmm.
like this like manifestation of his evil, and like
Like an astral form type deal.
kind of like a. I don't want to say I'm gonna be hated for this. Kind of like a JoJo stand, like in a way. It's just some other beast that represents like the evil of Ganon, and like
So, kind of like the Emperor Snoke to Emperor Palpatine in the latest Star Wars trilogy. Like
I hate that
if
so
if
much. Um,
But is that kind of like what you're talking about?
More like Bowser's Cooper cart, his or his like clown car. Like this is his vessel for like
Okay.
yeah. I'm gonna be so hated for this, but like
Vessel of
he's a
villainy.
villain, right? He's a villain, and this one, and you notice all this from like the first like 5 minutes or so. You meet him, like the
Mhm.
actual Ganondorf, but he's not like how you see in all the previous games. You might have seen him in like Ocarina of Time, or if you haven't played Zelda, Smash Brothers or so.
Mhm.
He is this ugly, like very like undead looking mummy, like very like
And this isn't Breath of the Wild.
this is in Tears of the Kingdom.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you don't see Ganondorf at all in Breath of the Wild. You just know that
He's there somewhere.
yeah, he's there. So like you just know you think that is just a Ganon, like he's a pig monster. Like you might say, I think that's for Breath of the Wild, but like, he's just that monster in like Breath of the Wild. But no, this is a core you're gonna fight this time. Um, Back to the topic of like how the intro was for me, like both the intros feel very much the same in spirit,
Mhm.
where you got to be ready to fight. You got to prep yourself to understand how to fight evil in the game,
Mhm.
and you have to go through these things called shrines, which has been the same as Breath of the Wild. And those are just basic puzzles for like new tools and stuff you get, or like more difficult puzzles later on. But like the new tools that you get are actually different from previous ones. Like before, there was just basic telekinetic powers, right?
Mhm.
But for this one, the way to change it up is you get these telekinetic powers that allow you to also stick things together, which is very interesting, right? Because
Sticky kinesis.
yeah, sticky kinesis. And instead of like time lock, they have like this thing called time reversal, which is exactly what it says on the tin is you reverse time on an object.
Mhm.
And then there's this one other one. I forgot what it replaces in Breath of the Wild, but it's called Fuse. And this is a core mechanic that you're going to find out about, where you can actually fuse everyday objects, like stuff you forage from or stuff that falls off of enemies.
Kind of
onto
like
your
alchemy.
No, you fuse it with your weapon. So like it's kind of like you get a tree branch or whatever,
Oh.
and you get like a rock, and you fuse it together to make like a axe or a hammer,
Oh.
and it adds more attack. Sometimes it adds stuff like you can do it on like weird items like flamethrowers and stuff. So you can have a shield that shoots flames at an enemy. That's really really cool because like
Sounds cool.
I really like it for that reason because like instead of like having to find certain objects that shoot lightning or fire or whatever, you can just make it yourself out of anything, and you can just make it like really powerful from that. Um, in terms of like how you use those objects though, that's kind of like where the magic of the game starts happening because you're gonna end up like in the tutorial level, not anywhere later. It makes you try to be creative with how you use those same like basic powers, like sticking stuff together, lifting stuff together, fusing stuff together, and like I went to use stuff like try to make like I tried to make aircrafts and I tried to make bridges and stuff like that and boats using just these tools to, and they reward you for that.
Mm-hmm.
And like I know for sure like you're gonna have all this stuff to use later on, but it's really amazing.
I saw something the other day about people like building bridges or something in Tears of the Kingdom to beat enemies or something.
I mean, they did that, and I've seen some people actually build straight up tanks and mechs, like using this basic objects.
Yeah.
People are insane. Don't spoil yourself there, but the things you can do with it are practically endless. But
It's like Zelda meets Minecraft.
I hate that. I heard a lot of people just call it like banjo, like nuts and bolts. I don't know if you heard about that. Way back when the 360 was out, they made a sequel to the first two banjo games. I don't know if you ever played those, but it was
Like once or twice.
it branched off completely. So instead of being just like a platformer, like collectathon,
Mm-hmm.
it also included like building cars, like racing and stuff like that. And it's like this doesn't make any sense at all. We hate it, and the way some of the vehicles look in like the Tears of the Kingdom trailers, they looked exactly like the nuts and bolts vehicles. So people were like flaming it hard about like, oh, this is nuts and bolts. 7 years waiting just for this, and it's like,
Man, it did take that long for this game to come out, didn't it?
it did. Like,
I think I was still in college when Breath of the Wild
and they
came
said
out.
and apparently this came out recently. Like in an article, they said like 1 year was just for polish, just to it was ready, but it was just, they were just going to spend a year polishing it up. and that's why we delayed it. I don't believe that's entirely true, but
I mean,
don't
if that
mind it
was
either
true,
way.
they wouldn't have had that big bug fix in a update like this past week.
Yeah, like polish my ass, but like the tone of the game is very like if you ever played the game Ocarina of Time, this is a critical game you need to play on your own time. By the way, Ocarina of Time and the sequel to that, but
I'll
the
get
tone
right
of the
on
game
it.
is very much like kind of like becoming an adult in Ocarina of Time, where like you were first like a kid and then you have to be an adult and the overworld changes. Like there's new stuff. It feels like you're gonna go into a new world entirely. I'm not gonna go further than that, but a lot of interesting stuff will happen in the game that you're gonna enjoy, like new enemies, new like dungeons, and new parts of the world. Of course, like you've probably seen it already, the Sky World and stuff. I think there, I heard there was something relating to the underground, which I haven't seen like a place for that yet. But once I do, I'll probably have to keep you up to date with that about my overall review of it. This is just my first impressions. Uh,
I mean,
but
everything like videos and stuff that I've seen and pictures of the game, like it's absolutely stunning as a game.
no, it's a beautiful game.
Like
For all intents and purposes.
the whoever create, I don't know what studio that makes it for Nintendo.
I think it is Nintendo.
Well, you know, like there's Game Freak
Yeah,
for
no, they think this is
Pokemon.
directly Nintendo.
It's direct. Okay, so like Nintendo has like really stepped it up when it comes to the Zelda games recently, and you know, Game Freak has recently stepped into that as well with Scarlet and Violet being completely open world, and the graphics on it are just incredible
Like,
for a game for Pokemon.
yeah, and I know that Mario is like their mascot.
Mm-hmm.
I always feel like Legend of Zelda was always like their bread and butter too, because just of how much people keep playing that game or
It's
any game from Legend of Zelda and stick with that and always go back to it. It brings a lot of people into Nintendo, like in the first place.
it's kind of like you know, Pikachu's the mascot,
A Pokemon.
but people stay around for Charizard.
Yeah, for all intents and purposes, that's pretty much how
Mario's
it
the
sounds
mascot of Nintendo, but people stick around for Zelda.
like. Exactly, and the thing is just like I think it'll be a great introduction to like new people into the world of Zelda. I think Nintendo could capitalize on this by bringing back old games. I know they release bundles for like the GameCube and stuff.
Yeah,
But at least, like,
yeah, I know. A couple years ago, they did for like the 30th anniversary of Mario or something. It was
the 3D All Stars.
yeah, so it was the Mario 64 game, Mario Sunshine, and
Galaxy.
Galaxy.
I'm so mad they never put Galaxy 2 in there. It did not make sense to me.
So I bought it, and you know, playing through 64 was, you know, reliving childhood. Sunshine, same thing. That game is hard.
That game is actually like, especially with like the wacky physics that happened in that game when you started like using your flood, but it's.
And then
It's
I've never
excruciating
played
sometimes.
Galaxy, but I've watched it. Like that looked like a great game. I personally, from what I've seen of Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, I want to see a Mario game like that.
Like just an open world,
Open world, like, you know,
craftable.
yeah.
Open world.
So like, let's take like the basis of Mario 64, but put it into something like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, a setting like that to really broaden it up.
Like kind of like a serious world with like
Yeah.
Mario like characters with it. I mean, I could see that work. I thought that they kind of were gonna do that Odyssey regarding like some parts of the like game. If you have been there, like
Yeah.
some of the bosses, some of the like the first world was very much like a lot more realistic than like a regular Mario world is.
Yeah.
But
Like, I understand why they keep Mario games the way they do, because, you know, you do want that sense of nostalgia for the original games, but it's...
I don't know if it's a headcanon or not for me, but I really think that both Mario and Zelda are in the same universe, just from the
different ends.
No. Yeah, different ends. Because here's the thing, right? I think if you ever played the game Link's Awakening, I believe
Mm-hmm.
they have chain chomps in it.
Hmm.
So like they exist there.
It's
So,
a different timeline.
It's a different timeline, and they meet like during Mario Kart 8 or something like that.
Yeah.
But I recommend I absolutely recommend this game for sure. Especially if you played the first Breath of the Wild. I was really scared when the first trailer came out, though, like the first gameplay trailer, because when I saw it, the world looked the exact same as Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
Like I thought, oh, they just added like these monsters, these bokoblins, and they just put them on a rock that moves and stuff, and like you just put two characters that were already in the game together. It's like, is this all you got? I don't understand what else is there that's interesting. But after like I saw more trailers and I swear on myself with some gameplay, I realized there's a lot more to it that they just didn't show.
Yeah.
Which I didn't like that they didn't show it. I would have been more hooked on it. But
Well, no,
the game is a full sequel. It's not like some DLC.
You don't want to put all your eggs in a basket whenever you're doing something like that. You know, you want to leave a lot to the imagination.
I mean, they added more in the second trailer, and I did appreciate it.
So, like,
it got me to buy the game at least.
So they released that game, the first like 12, 13 minutes of gameplay for Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, the one that just came out.
So they, in the first game, you're limited to Manhattan.
Right.
And like the main
world.
Part of the city.
Yeah.
Whereas they've like included all of it. Yeah. Like the entire city of New York for the sequel.
Like Queens and
yeah.
Wow.
So like they've like made the map so much bigger.
Yeah.
For the game. And you know, it's kind of...
And they added, like... I remember they had, like, a boat scene with that. And
yeah.
Like, are you going to go...
and honestly, like, you know, you had to really be... Like, it showed it whenever... at the beginning, where Craven is looking at the map and seeing all the villains.
Yeah, they added, like, some extra areas to look at.
But, like, you know, if... You know, you were just a casual person watching it, you're like... You never would have known that that they're going to expand the map until you got to the game. It's like, oh, wow. This is massive.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much I want... God, I want to talk about Spider-Man 2 so much, but I can't. This is a Zelda episode.
But the reason I bring that up is because, you know, you want to save the big things like that, like a map expansion or whatever, for like when you're showing gameplay or when you're like releasing the game.
No, I totally understand that.
Because
the thing is, though, with Breath of the Wild, you kind of know the map. And the thing is, like, it's not so much the map that I want to see, but if there's any changes to the world, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I know they don't want to put out the big stuff because you don't want to spoil yourself or you don't want to ruin the big surprise or whatever. But they could have been just a bit more to show that something changed about it, you know?
Yeah.
But now that I played the game, I notice there's a lot that's changed. It's not just like this little thing. And in a way, I appreciate it, but it feels like the execution of trying to present it to people through your trailers... what is going on here?
I think that's your phone.
Yeah, let me get that real quick. Hold on 1 second.
No, you're good. But no, I get what you're saying. You know, you want to see a little bit more so you can make sure that your interest is piqued, and you know that they are indeed keeping your interest. Mm-hmm. But at that same time, you know, they don't want to show too much because they do want a bit of mystery. You know what I mean?
Like, the one thing that, I said it already, like, the trailer, I could have left much, but I think they did fine. There's nothing much we can done about that, right? I mean, like...
Yeah. Well, a lot of movies, you know, they make the mistake of showing way too much in the trailers. To where, you know, you get in the theater and you're like, huh. This was the big part of the trailer, and then you know nothing significant ever.
That's kind of how I felt with like what was it? What's his name? Doctor Strange with the trailer. Like they made it seem like a lot was going to happen, but then it was just this extra thing that they used the important stuff for just a little thing, and it's like, okay, you tricked me.
Yeah.
Now I don't want to watch this anymore.
But so like if you had to put a rating on the game itself, like 1 out of 10.
I still think
of what you've played so far.
Of what I played, I think it's an 8 because it was just a tutorial. It still like made me like think for a lot of stuff because it didn't like make it easy for me. Like I was walking me like
Yeah.
like it was just like fine the way it was. I didn't have any problem with that. I think the only flaw I had was basically like going into like Hyrule when you end up going to the overworld. It feels like you got to explore just a little bit, and you have to follow the mini map
Yeah.
because it doesn't have any like hints as to where you need to go except for that. So, but after that, then it just gets better.
Okay.
So, do you think that should be it?
Yeah, I think we're good.
All right.